Monday at 8.
Stormy Daniels' attorney, Michael Avenatti, has filed a new lawsuit alleging that Ms. Daniels' former lawyer, Keith Davidson, and President Trump's personal lawyer, Michael Cohen, both colluded to manipulate Daniels and to benefit the president. The lawsuit alleges the president knew about it. The lawsuit includes alleged text messages between Davidson and Cohen from between January and March of this year. And here's just one sample. This is from Michael Cohen trying to get Ms. Daniels to appear on television and deny an affair with Mr. Trump shortly after In Touch magazine printed an interview she had once given them years before. Here's the text message, quote, "I have her tentatively scheduled for Hannity tonight. Call me after your trial." And then Keith Davidson responds, "She cannot, don't today. She is flying to LA tomorrow. I'm trying to get her to commit for tomorrow." With me now, Ms. Daniels' current attorney, Michael Avenatti. So you're talking about this collusion in regards to, these text messages, one we just read. I want to read one other exchange. Michael Cohen writes to Davidson, quote, "Let's forget tonight. They would rather tomorrow so they can promote the heck out of the show." And then Cohen texts again saying, quote, "Keith, the wise men all believe the story is dying. Don't think it's smart for her to do any interviews. Let her do her thing, but no interviews at all with anyone." Davidson responds 100%. So you're saying that they were essentially working together? Because don't lawyers often communicate, even if they're on opposite sides?
Well, Anderson, you're right. Lawyers often communicate even when they're on opposite sides, but they're not supposed to be working together when they are supposed to be representing adverse clients. And at this point, the settlement was supposed to have been executed back in 2016. There was no reason for Keith Davidson to be communicating with Michael Cohen. And certainly, if you look at the text messages attached to the lawsuit, these were two individuals that had a very chummy, inappropriate relationship at this point. They're supposed to be representing adverse interest, and they are anything other than adverse at this point.
In that last text, they talk about the wise men. They say they. You believe that they includes Fox News and the Trump administration, that the wise men included President Trump. How do you come to that conclusion? Is there any evidence to back that up? Because it doesn't seem that there's any more details in the complaint.
Well, we have evidence that the term wise men, quote unquote, included Mr. Trump. And to be clear, I'm not calling Mr. Trump a wise man. I want to be really clear about that. I'm just stating that that text message from Mr. Cohen included reference to Mr. Trump. And Anderson, if you look at these text messages, you would have to conclude that Michael Cohen is making a decision unilaterally to put Stormy Daniels on Sean Hannity without any involvement of Mr. Trump or other senior members of the Trump administration. You also have to conclude that Michael Cohen is able to meet with the First Lady relating to Stormy Daniels without any knowledge by the president, which is just not believable. It doesn't make any sense.
It is interesting that Keith Davidson is trying to get, it seems in this text, is basically agreeing with Michael Cohen to try to get his client on Sean Hannity. Is there any evidence he had asked her whether she wanted to, or it doesn't. From the text that was released, it seems like for some reason he's agreeing with Michael Cohen that she should go on.
Well, you're correct, Anderson, and there's no evidence that he consulted with her at any point in time or asked her whether she would want to go on Sean Hannity for the purposes outlined by Michael Cohen. And if you look at the text messages, you see that Michael Cohen is desperate to have her appear on Sean Hannity to conceivably disavow this relationship that she had with the president. And I think it's important, Anderson, that we keep in mind that during this time period, January, February, and March, this is the time period that Michael Cohen and others are claiming that my client is a liar, that they've had no further involvement with her after the date the NDA was supposed to be signed. David Schwartz was on your show around the same time period in March, disavowing all knowledge, effectively, of Stormy Daniels. So the whole thing doesn't make any sense, and these text messages show that the prior denials by the president and Michael Cohen are complete lies.
Keith Davidson's current attorney says that this opens up attorney-client privilege and that you've actually made a mistake, that this is great for Keith Davidson so he can finally reveal whatever, according to his attorney, he wants to reveal. Also, I want you to comment on that and also comment on what Rudy Giuliani, the president's attorney, said today. It was in Israel, and I just want to play what he said about your client and allow you to respond.
Oh, very, very credible source. Stormy, the porn star. But I would say that that's about the same credibility as her lawyer, who basically got thrown out of the case. I don't believe Stormy Daniels.
You know, we can often...
I don't believe her. So, Stormy, you want to bring a case? Let me cross-examine you. Because the business you were in entitles you to no degree of giving your credibility any weight. And secondly, explain to me how she could be damaged. I mean, she has no reputation. If you're going to sell your body for money, you just don't have a reputation. Maybe old-fashioned, I don't know.
Why don't you be able to respond to that?
Well, first of all, as it relates to the privilege, Anderson, you know, Keith Davidson, once again, is just wrong on the law. By filing the case, there is no broad waiver of privilege. We sent a 3-page letter to his lawyers late this afternoon explaining what the law in California is. So hopefully that'll put a bullet in that argument. But I do want to address Mr. Giuliani's comments. Mr. Giuliani is an absolute pig for making those comments. He's basically stating that women that engage in the adult film industry or other forms of pornography don't have reputations. They're not entitled to respect. I certainly hope that we're not going to reach a place where Rudy Giuliani is going to be the police that is going to decide which women deserve respect or not. His comments are piggish. They're outrageous, especially in today's day and age, and he should be fired immediately by the president. And if the president doesn't fire him as his personal attorney and condones this behavior, I think it's disgusting and it's an outrage.
Michael Avenatti, appreciate your time. Thanks very much. Fox, I spoke to him a short time ago. Colonel Peters, this so-called Spygate conspiracy theory, it wasn't just the president pushing the narrative. It wasn't just his allies in Congress. It was also Fox News. They talk about a witch hunt. I know you believe the witch hunt is actually against Robert Mueller, and it's being led by Fox News.
Yes, indeed I do. I mean, Robert Mueller is as noble, and I use that word carefully, as noble a public servant as you will find. And the assaults upon his character, upon his practices, upon his investigation, just betray our fundamental principles.
In the email that you sent to your colleagues at Fox News back in March when you told them you weren't renewing your contract, you said, and I quote, "Fox News is assaulting our constitutional order and the rule of law while fostering corrosive and unjustified paranoia among viewers." How much damage do you believe they've done to this country and the institutions that uphold the law?
Well, I think they're doing a great deal of damage still. We won't know how bad for years to come when we see the ultimate results. But Anderson, for years, I was glad to be associated with Fox. It was a legitimate conservative and libertarian outlet, and a necessary one. But with the rise of Donald Trump, Fox did become a destructive propaganda machine. And I don't do propaganda for anyone. And frankly, you know, as a former military officer, I took an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. And I saw, in my view, Fox, particularly the primetime hosts, attacking our constitutional order, the rule of law, the Justice Department, the FBI, Robert Mueller, and oh, by the way, the intelligence agencies. And they're doing it for ratings and profit. And they're doing it knowingly, in my view, doing a grave disservice to our country.
Do you think, you know, some of the hosts who in prime time, do you think they believe the stuff they're saying about the deep state, what they're saying about the Department of Justice, about the FBI?
Well, I suspect Sean Hannity really believes it. The others are smarter. They know what they're doing. It's bewildering to me. I mean, I wanted to just cry out and say, how can you do this? How can you lie to our country? How can you knowingly attack our Constitution, the bedrock of our system of government, the bedrock of our country? And when you go after the Constitution, you'd best beware, because you are doing phenomenal, indeed immeasurable damage.
Do you think we're heading to a constitutional crisis?
I think we're in a constitutional crisis right now, and it will end up either, barring unforeseen circumstances, either with impeachment or before the Supreme Court, or both. But when you have a president who believes he is above the law, who does not understand our system of government, does not respect our system of government, and willingly subverts our system of government, you've got a constitutional crisis. I mean, Anderson, when the Founding Fathers in the Declaration of Independence wrote that all men are created equal, they knew that we're not all born with the same good looks or the same intelligence or even the same privileges, the same strength and talents. they were sons of the Enlightenment. They meant we are all equal before the law. No man is above it, no man falls below it. Our president seems to genuinely believe that he is above the law. And this is a situation we haven't been faced with before with this administration. Even Senator Joseph McCarthy in his witch hunt days never directly attacked the Constitution. This is utterly unprecedented.
You've referred to it as sort of a cult of Trump.
Yeah, I think a lot of Trump supporters are so embarrassed by how it's all turned out that they just cling to him. They won't let any facts penetrate their reality. I've been startled by relatively well-educated people, and I know, and some military veterans who still insist that Trump can do no wrong, that he's some sort of messiah. And I'm afraid I part company with their views.
You actually trained in Russian studies, the Russian language. You have firsthand experience with how Russian intelligence operates. Do you believe that Vladimir Putin has some kind of grip on President Trump?
I am convinced that Vladimir Putin has a grip on President Trump. And Anderson, when I first learned of the Steele dossier, it just rang true to me because that's how the Russians do things. And before he became a candidate or president, Donald Trump was the perfect target for Russian intelligence. Here's someone who has no self-control, a sense of sexual entitlement, and intermittent financial crises. I mean, that's made to order for seduction by Russian intelligence. And look, I may be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I hope Putin doesn't have a grip on him. But the dossier rings true. I think in the future, we're going to look back on the much maligned Christopher Steele, who took that dossier to the FBI, as something of a hero. And again, I hope I am wrong. But when you look at Trump's behavior patterns, his unwillingness ever to criticize Vladimir Putin, his slow-rolling sanctions, his unwillingness to create problems with Russia, even though as he attacks NATO, disrupts relations with the EU, how can you not draw the conclusions that Donald Trump, the President of the United States, is frightened of Vladimir Putin and his grip?
So for you, the Mueller investigation is critical. It moving forward, it being allowed time to complete.
Without exaggeration, the Mueller investigation is the most important of my lifetime. And I am 66 years old. I lived through Watergate. This is, again, Anderson, it's about a fundamental assault on the Constitution by the President of the United States and his paladins. It cannot get graver short of a world war.
Colonel Peters, I appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Anderson.
Well, up next, a new development in the Stormy